Starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, State Election Priorities for Queensland Businesses, CCIQs Super 7. My name is Daryl Giles from CCIQ and I'm your facilitator for today. Alongside me, I am delighted to welcome CCIQ's General Manager of Advocacy, Nick Behrens. Nick will take you through today's presentation. Super 7 is a core part of CCIQ's commitment to put the interests of small and medium businesses at the heart of the political agenda in Queensland, ensuring that our state is the best possible place to do business. Nick will outline why the Super 7 are important for Queensland businesses and how the policies announced by each major party stack up against these priorities. First, some tips to get the most from today's session. We will be online for about 30 minutes and following the main presentation there will be an opportunity for questions and answers. Please send your questions through for Nick using the text box on screen. At the end of the presentation we will collate all the questions and Nick will answer as many as he can. Following the session we will email all participants a copy of the presentation, a link and additional supporting information. So please check your inboxes later today. So now I'll hand over to Nick Behrens from CCIQ to take you through today's webinar, State Election Priorities for Queensland Businesses, CCIQs Super 7.
Thank you, Daryl, and welcome listeners. CCIQ believes the 31st of January 2015 state election will determine not only the next Premier and state government, but also indirectly the course of our state economy and business conditions over the coming 3 years. Over the last 3 years, our members have relied on CCIQ to provide them with knowledge, insights and unbiased opinion on government and opposition policies relating to small business. This election will be no exception. We have objectively analysed the policies released by each major party and how they impact on economic growth and societal prosperity in our proud state. Our promise to the Queensland business community, the LNP, the Queensland Labor Party, its members and candidates, is to maintain our non-partisan position to assess all policies on their merit to the business community and be steadfastly independent in analysing and encouraging constructive debate in this election. CCIQ across this election campaign has looked at all the policies with the lens of small business. This is so because small business provides for societal inclusion and community prosperity by offering a livelihood to 1 million Queenslanders through providing a secure, ongoing job. It is right to be proud of our state's small businesses as they offer world-class products and services. Before moving too far into today's presentation, I wanted to quickly provide a snapshot of the economic backdrop in which this election campaign is being conducted. At this point in time, Queensland businesses remain optimistic about the future. However, we know that there is somewhat of a disconnect between their level of confidence and optimism and actual trading conditions. At this point in time, trading conditions, as most listeners would be well aware, is very difficult. Total sales revenue at this point in time is flat, and this has been coupled together with rising operational costs, which has progressively squeezed business profitability. And quite simply, without profitability being there, Queensland businesses have been reticent to invest in the areas of plant and equipment, buildings and employment levels. And accordingly, we can see for small business, perhaps the biggest issue for them in this state election is obviously the economy. And for the broader Queensland business community, it's the creation of jobs. CCIQ is determined that the issues of concern and importance for Queensland small businesses stay at the forefront of the state election policy debate. In anticipation of the 2015 state election, CCIQ commissioned its pre-election survey in December 2014 with over 1,100 Queensland businesses providing their views on issues of concern and importance for the next state government. CCIQ conducted this survey to determine priority issues for small business on key election issues such as fiscal and economic management, business costs, red tape, productivity, innovation and entrepreneurship in Queensland. As a result of that survey of 1,100 Queensland businesses, we're able to gain a very accurate snapshot of what their key concerns are at this point. And unsurprisingly, you'll see the top 10 on your screen there. Number one is the cost of energy. Unsurprising given that the electricity prices for small business, as measured by General Tariff 22, have risen by over 120% across the last 7 years. Number two, the level of economic activity and demand as discussed. Number three is the efficiency of state government service delivery. Overall complexity of the state tax system in at number four. Number five, cost of telecommunications. Number six, level of state government debt. Number seven, state government budget deficit. Recruiting employees with appropriate skills in at number eight. Number nine is unemployment, and rounding out the top 10 is cost of transport. And accordingly, CCIQ has made 7 key recommendations that we want the next state government to deliver on. And we've called it the CCIQs Super 7 wish list. And what that is we're asking the next state government to stimulate economic growth and job creation, deliver better responsible fiscal management and restoration of the state's AAA credit rating, drive down government costs on business, drive down government red tape on business. But also we wanted the government to cast an eye towards the horizon, enhancing productivity within the state, investing in innovation and facilitating business startups. So ladies and gentlemen, what we've done is we've analysed each of the major parties' policies and how they align with this Super 7. Very pleasingly, CCIQ received detailed responses from both the LNP and Queensland Labor on our Super 7. And the next series of slides really break down their policies in detail and how they will impact on the Queensland small business community over the coming 3 years. The first area is stimulating economic growth and jobs. And this is obviously as a result of concerns relating to the level of economic activity and unemployment. We at CCIQ called on the next state government to deliver a diversified industry development agenda outside of the 4 pillars. There is a sizable chunk of the economy that is outside the resources, tourism, agriculture, building, construction sectors. So we wanted emphasis on that hefty chunk of the economy as well. We wanted to develop a Queensland infrastructure plan, but also to implement a regionalisation strategy. Here at CCIQ, regional Queensland is of crucial importance to us. We are not Brisbane-centric, we are not SEQ-centric, we focus on all of Queensland. But we also are recognising that in various parts of the state, there continues to be skill shortages, and so we wanted the next state government to put in to address skills requirements for the future. So in terms of skills, firstly, the LNP have allocated $91 million in their Jobs of Tomorrow package. This is essentially the creation of an additional 12,000 apprentice positions through providing a $6,000 incentive payment to employers. Very pleasingly, it also focuses on traineeships with $3,000 incentive payments to Queensland employers as well. The Queensland Labor, they're allocating $240 million for skilling Queenslanders for the work program, which includes an investment of $34 million in TAFE Queensland. Queensland Labor policy towards TAFE is interesting in that it's seeking to unwind the reforms that have occurred in recent years, and that is really moving the TAFE model to, vocational education and training funding in Queensland to the reforms were to move it to contestable funding, i.e. TAFE needs to compete with the private sector to deliver training. Now, the ALP have committed to unwinding that reform. We're not convinced about that because we felt that in ensuring that it's a contestable market, that really does create a closer linkage to what industry wants from the VET system. And so we're not necessarily sure that that's the best outcome. In the area of road infrastructure, you can see that the Queensland Labor have made a commitment to developing an infrastructure fund, and in the right-hand column you've got LNP's major infrastructure announcements in the area of the road system. Obviously, the strong choices infrastructure fund enables a lot of money to be invested in this area, and we can see them in those various projects there. Just a reminder to listeners that this slide deck will be made available and forwarded to you via email. So if you are having difficulty seeing some of the detail or you want greater length of time to analyse it, we'll send that to you after this presentation. Rail infrastructure, you've got an LNP commitment of $532 million to the Sunshine Coast train duplication project from Landsborough to Beerburrum. You've got both the parties committing to a major sports stadium up in Townsville. In the area of tourism, you've got $40 million allocated by Queensland Labor to enhance tourism marketing, and an $80 million investment very similar to enhance tourism marketing for Queensland. The next area is delivering responsible fiscal management, and obviously the budget fundamentals are a key determinant of business confidence, and Queensland businesses are looking to the next state government to restore the state's financial position through responsible fiscal management. CCIQ, as part of the Super 7, called on the next state government to reduce government debt, to return the budget to an operating surplus, to improve the efficiency of government services, to broaden contestability practices, i.e. enabling the private sector to provide government services, and also because of majority support from our members, we called on the next state government to lease the state's electricity and port assets. The LNP and ALP policies, this is probably the area of greatest contrast between the two major parties. The ALP is obviously, they've committed to leasing the state's electricity and port assets. That creates about $37 billion. The way they're going to use those proceeds is pay down state debt by $25 billion, the creation of a $8.6 billion infrastructure fund, and the creation of a $3.4 billion cost of living fund. They've also committed to getting the budget back in the surplus by 2015-16. The Queensland Labor, by contrast, well, they're going to keep the assets under state control, and what they're seeking to do is apportion 2/3 of dividend payments from GOCs to driving down debt. The practical implications of that is that across 10 years, the ALP will drive down debt by $12 billion, and the LNP will drive down debt by $25 billion. So we do, it's only reasonable to conclude that a AAA credit rating will probably accrue to the LNP faster than what it would to the ALP. Very pleasingly though, the Queensland Labor have also committed to getting the budget back in the surplus by 2015-16. The cost of doing business remains top of mind for many Queensland businesses. It's critical that the next state government deliver well-targeted reductions to business taxes and drive down other government costs to support the viability and competitiveness of Queensland's small businesses. We called on the next state government to do a number of things, including lifting the payroll tax exemption threshold, removing stamp duty on insurance, as some businesses are now actively underinsuring their assets, to retain the reforms of workers' compensation system that occurred last year, and to ensure that electricity prices remain competitive for Queensland business. Again, in analysing the policies of Queensland Labor and LNP, in the area of payroll tax, the LNP are committing to lift the payroll tax exemption threshold from 1.1 million up to 1.6 million. That will, they'll only get to 1.4 in the next term of government. The ALP are committing to a 25% rebate on the wages of apprentices and trainees for payroll tax. They're also seeking to provide a 3-year payroll tax holiday for any companies moving to Queensland. Both parties, very pleasingly, have committed to no new taxes, fees or charges, or increases in taxes, fees and charges. We think that's pretty good. That creates business certainty and expectation on the next government, and hopefully that will deliver greater inclination for business to invest. Workers' comp is, again, one of those areas where there is significant contrast between the two parties. Listeners may recall last year the LNP action reform in the area of workers' comp, i.e. they introduced a 5% threshold for employers to access common law. What that means is employees no longer have unfettered access to suing their employer. The benefit of that was a 17% reduction in premiums for Queensland businesses. That was about a $1 billion stimulus over 4 years for Queensland business. Also means that the state has the lowest workers' comp premiums across Australia. And in terms of Queensland Labor, their commitment in this area is to unwind those reforms, which doesn't sit comfortably with us. And you know, we agree on a lot with Queensland Labor, but this is one area where, quite simply, we're not on the same page as them. In the area of energy, you've got through the cost of living fund that is created under Strong Choices, LNP are allocating a significant amount of money to alleviate the impact of rising electricity prices. That'll mean for small business general tariff 22 about $1,400 in savings across 5 years. The ALP have committed to establishing an independent authority to set the feed-in tariff for solar. And they've also established an inquiry into how Queensland can achieve greater uptake of renewable energy. The reduction in overall volume of regulation needs to be felt in a meaningful way by business owners. Accordingly, the next state government must continue with red tape reduction policies but remove unnecessary regulation and ensure that new regulation does not creep in to replace those previously repealed laws. And finally, we want to ensure that compliance, resulting compliance is efficient and cost effective. The LNP really are just seeking to continue actioning their existing policy, which is to reduce state government red tape by 20% by 2018. And if achieved, that will deliver a $569 million savings each year for Queensland business. Queensland Labor policy in this area is to establish a red tape reduction panel chaired by a Minister for Small Business. In the area of productivity, Queensland businesses recognise that enhancing productivity will improve the viability of their operations, allowing them to grow their business and employ more people. And this is perhaps one of the biggest areas where the state government can cooperate with the Commonwealth to deliver key reforms that will boost Queensland productivity. And examples would include obviously the funding of the upgrade of the Bruce Highway, a second range crossing for Toowoomba, southwest Queensland, but also working with the Commonwealth on key reforms such as taxation and federation reform, and of course workplace relations reform to address the imbalance that currently exists within the Fair Work Act. LNP policy outside of cooperating with the Commonwealth is that they're allocating $590 million in the practical science and innovation projects to deliver productivity and service delivery benefits. Queensland Labor will seek to establish the Queensland Productivity Commission focused on economic reform and policy, regulatory review of departments and economic research into private and public sector productivity. CCIQ believes the next state government must invigorate the generation of ideas that will underpin business innovation and be a source of competitive advantage for Queensland small businesses. Around 85% of Queensland businesses currently think that innovation is only something possible for large and corporate businesses. Yet CCIQ's engagement with our members and our research shows that the majority of small businesses are actually engaging in innovative activity. So we're hoping that the next state government will start to reframe how small business looks at innovation, because it is embedded in the daily operations. And accordingly, we want the next state government to continue to foster a small business innovative culture, to better target government assistance programs, and to encourage collaboration between the business community with academia and amongst businesses themselves. Innovation, very pleasingly, has received good commitments from both the parties. The LNP have allocated $590 million in business-focused practical innovation, as I mentioned under the productivity slide, and the Queensland Labor have allocated $50 million over 3 years under the Advanced Queensland Initiative to reinvigorate science and innovation. In terms of facilitating business startups, CCIQ believes that more can be done to encourage entrepreneurs in Queensland to take a leap of faith and to turn their idea into reality. The next state government has to recognise the important role that business startups play in our economy and implement policies that inspire and foster entrepreneurial activity within our state. And again, it's really pleasing to see both the ALP and the LNP make good commitments in this area. The LNP are allocating $500 million as part of their Strong Choices Entrepreneurial and Innovation Fund, and the Queensland Labor are allocating $40 million as part of their Business Development Fund targeting startups, i.e. businesses with a new idea. In terms of a summary of the policies, our general observation is that it's not our role to tell our members who they should vote for. We believe our role really is to provide the information to enable our members to make an informed decision as to which party has the best policies on offer that align with business being able to grow. And although having said that, it would be fair to say that simply because of the Strong Choices proposal, the LNP have been able to allocate $8.6 billion in infrastructure projects and $3.4 billion in a cost of living war chest that greatly assists small business. Queensland Labor, in contrast, is exercising fiscal restraint because they're not in a position to free up that money. They're electing to retain assets under state control, and so they don't have available that $12 billion to recycle our infrastructure towards future needs and capability. And that's the general observation, that the most dramatic contrast is simply the dollars that are being allocated. Regardless of who forms the next state government, it is essential that they implement a policy program that addresses the issues of concern and importance for our state's small business community. We believe that the next state government should prioritise economic and responsible fiscal management, as well as enhance the overall business operating environment through less regulation and lower business costs. But as I said earlier, we also now need to start cast our eye towards the horizon. We believe it's time to focus renewed effort in the area of productivity and innovation and entrepreneurship. And so ultimately, when people vote on the last Saturday in January, which is this Saturday, amazingly so, they should do so on the basis of who they think will best address the concerns raised by Queensland small businesses that will deliver a landscape for them to be able to grow and employ and provide the foundation for community prosperity. I'm now happy to take any questions from listeners, so over to you.
Thanks very much, Nick, for an informative presentation, which has given small businesses some excellent insights into the policies that might serve them best from the political parties ahead of Saturday's poll. As Nick mentioned, it's now time for our Q&A session, so please send through your questions using the text box on the screen, and we'll answer as many as we can in the remaining minutes. To start off, we have a couple through from our listeners. One person wants to know, given that the LNP has this huge war chest and has some fairly bold plans for small business, have they shown enough in the first 3 years in government to be given a second chance to build on their platforms?
I was asked a very similar question by ABC a couple of weeks ago in terms of should the LNP be afforded opportunity to continue to govern. Our views on this are that back in 2012 we were able to secure some very good commitments from the LNP when it came into office. Things such as lifting the payroll tax exemption threshold, abolition of the commercial waste levy, commitment to reducing red tape by 20%, actioning reform in workers' compensation. There are a range of initiatives that the LNP have actioned and are in the course of actioning that are delivering significant benefit to Queensland business. We believe that irrespective of who wins this Saturday, those initiatives should be given opportunity to continue. We should continue to lift the payroll tax exemption threshold. We should continue to drive down red tape on business to meet that 20% reduction. So we would like to see those sorts of policies be independent of the LNP and Queensland Labor. Partially deflecting your question, on the listener's question, but ultimately we're steadfastly committed to being non-partisan, and so we'd like to see those sorts of initiatives that benefit business be delivered by both sides.
Thank you. CCIQ members, through our research, have indicated that they support the leasing arrangements or proposals of the LNP. Do you think that is going to provide the sufficient funds to carry out the government's plans?
What I might do is provide a bit of a backdrop to the Strong Choices proposal, because initially we conducted a number of polls using ReachTel on this issue, and initially our members weren't on board. When it was a sale option, there was significant concern about the Strong Choices proposal, but the moment the state government switched to a leasing option using the same ReachTel methodology, same survey frame, they came on board and dramatically came on board with significant lift in support. And yeah, we had 5 measures which ultimately, in our view, have been ticked, and that was, the first was benefit to the balance sheet, and pay down of $25 billion is significant, goes a long way to restoration of the state's AAA credit rating. Benefit to the budget, reduces debt servicing bill by $1.3 billion each year, enables us to get back in the surplus much quicker. We wanted the proceeds invested in infrastructure that would deliver long-lasting economic benefit to our state. Obviously, $8.6 billion in the Strong Choices Infrastructure Fund ticks that box. But the area of greatest priority and importance to business was what would be the impact on prices and services, and accordingly CCIQ commissioned Ernst & Young to look at this issue, and the evidence came back and indicated that the experience both internationally and elsewhere in Australia is that prices are lower than what they would be if they were if they went across to private sector operation, and that services do not deteriorate under private sector operation. So you're able to accrue lower prices than they would otherwise be, and yet services don't deteriorate. So there really is a good case for why private sector operation of states' electricity assets in particular is a good thing for Queenslanders. And look, this evidence is in dramatic contrast to the fear-mongering that the unions have made in this area. We felt that it was of crucial importance that we enable Queenslanders to make an informed decision, and not a decision that is influenced by scaremongering or politics of populism. The evidence, the quite clear evidence, is that prices are lower and services remain the same, if not improve, under private sector operation.
We have another question which asks that the ALP, Queensland Labor, are at a distinct disadvantage, it would appear, given that they are showing this fiscal restraint and that they have so few members and experienced politicians in there. What chance have they got of carrying Queensland forward into the future if they happen to win government?
That's a really good question, and I think one of the pleasing things that occurred since 2012 state election is Queensland Labor's re-engagement with the business community. Very pleasingly, the Chamber now has a good working relationship with Queensland Labor. We meet regularly with Curtis Pitt. Queensland Labor set up Business for Labor, which is a quarterly forum that CCIQ attends to put forward the views of our members on the development of policy for them. And so our view is that so long as the Queensland Labor continues to have a good relationship with the business community, then they're giving themselves every chance of being able to be an effective and capable government. And only time will tell whether or not Queenslanders more broadly want to give them the opportunity for them to be in office over the next 3 years.
And a final question, do you think small business generally will be happy come Monday?
I think as listeners will clearly have seen, there are a good range of policies that do materially benefit small business and will benefit business across the next 3 years. What we are seeing though is significant dollar amounts, particularly under the LNP, some good programs as well by Queensland Labor. We see the announcements, we see the policies, but we don't yet see the detail. And the role of our organisation is, once the election is run on Saturday, it's then up to us to sit down with whoever wins to work out that detail and see how these initiatives can be best rolled out. If there's a parting message to our listeners and to our membership and small business, and I think it resonates with them, is that small business wants certainty so they can have confidence. And the best possible way to create certainty is to have a government that has a mandate to action its policies. And to have a mandate, you need a majority, you need a strong majority. And the worst possible thing that would flow from an election this Saturday would be a hung parliament and a party having to form minority government, even though both have ruled it out. So we believe that Queenslanders should factor into their voting the fact that there needs to be a government with a strong majority that can action its policies.
Well, that's all the questions we have time for today. Thank you very much, Nick Behrens. I'd also like to thank everyone else who has joined us for today's session. And don't forget that CCIQ has a range of webinars and events coming up over the next month or so, including Employer Assistance Webinar, Understanding Personal and Carers Leave on February 18, and our CCIQ EcoBiz webinar series, number 1, Energy Efficiency for Small Business on February 19. If you want to find out more about the upcoming webinars, go to the CCIQ events page to book your spot. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Daryl Giles from CCIQ, and I look forward to welcoming you to another webinar in the very near future.